vaccine. After a one-day delay, 4 astronauts lift off on a flight to the International Space Station, and a racing pigeon sells for more than $1 million.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
A second drug maker announces its vaccine is effective at preventing infection from COVID-19. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, new hope in the fight against the coronavirus. This morning, pharmaceutical company Moderna announced its new vaccine is 94.5% effective in phase 3 trials. Last week, Pfizer says its similar version of a COVID-19 vaccine was more than 90% effective. The news comes as cases rise in 49 states, with cases and hospitalizations smashing records. At least 27 states have imposed new coronavirus restrictions on businesses and gatherings in the last 2 weeks. The government says both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines will be free, and both require 2 doses. Health experts say there will likely be doses for some high-risk people by the end of the year and widespread distribution by spring of 2021. The Nevada R5 school district is now requiring students in grades 6 through 12 to wear masks. The mandate took effect today. All NHS students must wear masks before entering the buildings and will remain masked while in all classroom settings. Students who forget or lose their mask will be supplied with one. Any student who fails to comply with the mandate will be sent home immediately. Well, after an interesting weekend, we're in for a rather pleasant week. Michael Hayslip joins us with the first look at the forecast.
Not only a pleasant week, but how about a warm November week? You know, usually, Tanya, we'd be talking about temperatures just about where we are this afternoon, you know, high 50s, low 60s. But by the time we get to the 7-day forecast, it's going to feel almost like a taste of fall returned. Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin right now. We've lost our wind chill, sitting at 62 degrees, but look at that southwest wind coming in at 18 miles an hour as the wind arrows just barrel in. 62 in Neosho, 65 in Parsons, and that'll be our clubhouse leader. Let's go 63 in both Nevada and Fort Scott. Clean Skywatch storm tracker, big high pressure system that even though it's moved off to the east of us, look at how dry everything is from the Rockies all the way to the mid-Atlantic. And so what we're going to have for our day planner is we'll go around 62, 63 degrees, and our average high would be about 61. So, you know, right on par for where we should be. But this is kind of interesting here because look at what's going to happen on the Mercury as we push into Tuesday. Our nights get a little bit warmer. Our days do as well. And by the time we get to the middle of the week, mid-60s, by the time we get to the end of the week, we're talking about the 70s. Now, Tanya, while we're going to be blessed with very warm weather, we're also going to talk about the precipitation that we need over the weekend, where we stand historically as far as our annual rainfall. Also, too, we're going to think about the people of Central America because they're about to get hit again by another hurricane.
It's amazing that the hurricanes are still raging on.
Mid-November, and we're still talking about it.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, after a one-day delay, a crew of 4 lifted off Sunday night aboard the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule on their way to the International Space Station, where they will live for the next 6 months. Mark Strassman reports from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
0. Ignition.
4 astronauts lifted off Sunday night on a SpaceX rocket flight to the International Space Station. U.S. Air Force Colonel Michael Hopkins is leading 2 Americans, physicist Shannon Walker and astronaut Victor Glover, as well as Japanese astronaut Soichi Noguchi, on the 27-hour trip to the space station. Glover will become the first black astronaut to spend an extended period aboard the space station, about 6 months. The astronauts named their SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule Resilience in light of this year's global challenges. This liftoff was given a 50-50 chance of even happening. For NASA and SpaceX, heavy winds scrubbed Saturday's original scheduled launch. After the launch, the rocket's first stage separated from the spacecraft and re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, landing nose up on a drone ship out in the Atlantic. It will be reused for the next crewed flight scheduled for March. Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence were on hand to watch the launch. The mission, called Crew 1, culminates a 6-year, multi-billion-dollar effort by NASA and SpaceX. It will start a regular crew rotation of flights to the space station using American-made commercial spacecraft. Mark Strassman, CBS News, at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
This view inside.
Longer relying on the Russians for rides into space, NASA can increase the number of astronauts who live and work aboard the $100 billion International Space Station. Well, pigeons are often given unflattering descriptions like rats with wings, but those that can fly at record speeds are bringing in record money at online auctions. CBS's Ian Lee has more in World Watch.
This treasure chest is worth more than its weight in gold. It carries a prized pigeon named New Kim, and this bird is fast. Racing pigeons can be a bit of an obsession for breeders in Belgium, known as fanciers.
So you have like 20,000 pigeon fanciers in a very small country competing to each other on a very high level. It's like a Champions League.
2-year-old New Kim soared ahead of the flock in an online bidding war. She was put up for auction 2 weeks ago with a starting price of $230. But feathers flew in the final minutes on Sunday when 2 Chinese collectors battled over the bird, driving up the final price to $1.9 million. Racing pigeons is an old sport, going back hundreds of years. Militaries also used the brisk birds to deliver messages during World Wars I and II. It's not just New Kim's speed that attracts buyers. They're also looking for a new nest egg.
The pigeon New Kim is very special because she's very young, so we can still breed, or the buyer can still breed many years from the pigeon.
Meaning New Kim could turn into a golden goose. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Well, the previous record for a pigeon was Armando, who sold last year for $1.42 million. Just a little less than the 1.9. And $1.42 million. The sport of pigeon racing was declining in popularity, but auctions like this one are bringing serious prices for potential champions. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, a victim who filed a sexual abuse claim against the Boy Scouts of America shares his story. A nightmare he says lasted for years. And later, a recipe that's hearty, quick, and perfect for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We're making corned beef hash in Mr. Food Test Kitchen. A staggering number of people have made sexual abuse claims against the Boy Scouts of America. The more than 82,000 alleged victims span generations, as young as 9 years old and as old as 95. The number of accusations is even greater than those against the Roman Catholic Church in the U.S. Boy Scouts filed for bankruptcy protection before settling these abuse cases. Errol Barnett shares one victim's story.
I was in there 5 minutes before he unzipped my sleeping bag, had his hand down my pants.
Gil Gale was just 11 years old when he says a scout leader first assaulted him during a campout in Alabama. He says another scout leader violently assaulted him when he was around 13 years old.
He raped me, and I can tell you that I struggled with drugs and alcohol until I was 32. It also caused, I took a couple of swings at suicide. I was just in so much pain.
Gale is one of thousands who are currently accusing members of the Boy Scouts of America of sexual abuse.
This may be the largest child sexual abuse scandal in certainly America and maybe the world.
Michael Fow represents over 1,000 former Boy Scouts.
The problem was not a few bad apples, wasn't a number of mistakes, but obviously a systematic failure on the part of the Boy Scouts from top on down.
The organization says it intends to set up a victims' compensation fund and said in a statement, quote, "We are heartbroken that we cannot undo their pain," adding that they are committed to working as expeditiously as possible to provide survivors of abuse with equitable compensation.
If we can somehow make the price the Boy Scouts pay so incredibly painful that systematic changes can happen that will ensure it never happens to anyone else, I think all 80,000 of us would settle for that.
Now, Mr. Fow and other attorneys we've spoken with say they expect to hear from yet more former Scouts, all of them with their own painful stories, before the end of the day. Monday is the filing deadline. Outside advisors will then review the 82,000 plus allegations, a process in and of itself which could take years. Errol Barnett, CBS News, New York.
Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
This dish is found in restaurants all over the country.
But with our homemade version, you won't have to travel past your front door to get it.
But first, Michael Aislip returns with your complete forecast.
Halfway through the month of November, I tell you what, the calendar is just a-flying. So let's talk number one about precipitation, and then we'll talk about temperatures. Now, for the month, 1.59 inches, not too bad. We'll pick some up by the time we get to the weekend. And the amazing part is, after having such a wet spring, we've kind of evened out. We're now up a total of 1 inch since January 1. Now, if you go back to September 1, we're actually down 3 inches. So that's why we need to pick up just a little bit of rain, but the drought monitor has improved as we no longer have the severe area through southwest Missouri. We're able to stay with just the moderate right there on the north side of I-44, stretching up to the northern edge of southwest Missouri, yet we still see dry. Then down to the south, where we've seen a whole lot of rain just along I-44 right there that does not even register on the drought monitor. Now, as far as our temperatures go, our November average high of 68.8, guess what? That puts us for the 7th warmest on record through 16 days. And we'll see a little bump right here, but you got to remember 16 days in, that's really not going to have a whole lot of effect on what our average high is going to be. 62 right now as we look outside the mothership. Look at that wind coming in at 18 miles per hour. It's going to be a little bit of a blustery afternoon, and our temperatures, we're not going to see a whole lot of movement right now. We'll pretty much go mid-60s for the most part, but a clean Skywatch storm tracker, so no complaints about that. Now, what we do need to talk about is a low pressure system that's hanging over the Pacific Northwest right there. That's going to give them an inordinate amount of rain and snow. That's right, they're going to get mid-November snow that's going to follow the jet stream, but it's going to get blocked off by the Rockies right here and really not going to affect us at all through the course of our work week. As a matter of fact, that blocking motion that we're going to see, you can tell the warmer temperatures from the color contour is going to warm us up into the 70s by the time we're done with the work week. We have a catastrophe on our hands as far as Central America goes, and I don't use that word lightly. That's a word that I hardly ever use when it comes to weather. But we now have a Category 5 hurricane, and what is Hurricane Iota. And it's going to make landfall as a Cat 5 right on the border of Honduras and Nicaragua right there. You have to remember, it was a mere 13 days ago. 13 days ago, they got hit by a Category 3. We're talking about impoverished nations. We're talking about governments that don't help support their people. We're talking about not a whole lot of infrastructure. And so this is something that we will report on here weather-wise for the next several days because it's going to be a mess. Like I said, expected to hit as a Category 5 when it makes landfall and then slowly progress. But we're still talking about a Category 1 there as it moves across Central America. Think about those people here because we are just very fortunate enough to have very calm weather, very peaceful weather, and actually very warm weather for this time of year. As a matter of fact, as we push into tomorrow, we'll see our temperatures slowly increase to the point where we're going to be talking about abnormally warm as we get through the middle of November into the latter stages. Don't have to worry about any freeze warnings or watches, despite the fact that we got below 30 today in portions of northeast Oklahoma. Didn't have anything spawn up, but look at this 7-day forecast. This is absolutely a thing of glory because what we can do is enjoy a great work week and a great school week for the kids. And yeah, I know, if I could take the rain, I'd shift it and get it out of the weekend, but we need a little bit of precip. And so we're still going to be right in 70s into Saturday. And then Saturday evening, we'll kick in the rain and take that into Sunday. And really, it's what we need. We'll get that out of the way before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, at least the temperatures will be decent this weekend, that's for sure.
And when we push into next week, we're talking about great travel weather too. I know a whole lot of people's travel plans have changed. We saw that as evident from the KOAM News Now Instapoll this morning. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be perfect to be out and about next week.
There you go. All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Specialist Bobby Sanders in the U.S. Army. The Galena, Kansas native joined the 438th Military Police Company in 2008. He earned a combat medal for his service while stationed in Iraq. To Specialist Bobby Sanders, we thank you, our four-state hero. Corned beef hash is found in restaurants all over the country, but with today's recipe, you won't have to travel past your front door to get it. Howard shows us how to make homemade hash in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Today, we've got a dish that's making a huge comeback since it's easy, budget-friendly, and super tasty. I'm talking about corned beef hash. No, not the stuff that comes in a can, but hash that is so good, your gang will be asking for seconds. We start by sauteing some diced onions in a little butter, just until they're golden. Once they are, we add in some diced potatoes. Those can be fresh ones that we cut up and parboil, or we can cut up a few leftover baked potatoes, or even use a bag of diced potatoes that we find in our dairy or freezer case. Now we add salt and pepper, and gently give it a mix. And now for the star of this dish, we add in a good amount of diced cooked corned beef. And that can be thick cut from the deli or from leftovers. We let this cook till it's heated through and it starts to get crispy on the edges. And don't think this is just for breakfast, because it's just as welcome for dinner, with or without an egg. So why not go online and get the recipe for our homemade hash so you can add this 4-ingredient favorite to your dinner or breakfast routine. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a new old-fashioned way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
I'm a huge fan of corned beef. You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Temperatures in the mid-60s throughout the course of our afternoon. Nice thing is we're going to be warming up this week, middle of November. And so as we head into the weekend, mid-60s by Wednesday, 70s. By the end of the work week, then finally some much needed rain over the weekend. Now over to Dow with a look at what's coming up tonight at 5.
Yeah, at 5, with the pandemic keeping millions at home, an increasing number of people are trying their hand at making beer. The American Home Brewers Association says there are more than 1 million home brewers in the U.S., and that number is growing. Plus, Pittsburgh Church that feeds hundreds of people on Thanksgiving is canceling due to COVID. We'll explain why. And we'll look at how Ottawa Tribe of Oklahoma is transforming a Miami landmark. Hope you join us. KOAM News at 5.
Thank you, Dow. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.